Previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
I cannot wait to find out how high school students in Albuquerque, New Mexico really live their lives.
No, really. I'm telling you, you can use Pam as a lubricant. It's going to work on the door. It'll work.
I mean, barring a catastrophic failure, those were probably our best 2 episodes, so I hope they were on tape.
Hello.
Well. There's nothing that starts a show off with a bang. Like a long silence after a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jonathan Strickland.
I'm Maya Zakhtar.
I'm Eric Sandine.
And together
we form
a wonderful, heartwarming musical fit for the entire family.
So this week, Jonathan picked High School Musical as the movie we would watch. And if you've never watched this show, we, for some reason, have somehow settled on this idea that we will watch we'll watch movies, terrible movies, and see how long.
I think from now on we have to watch musicals. That's what I just said.
As I've retconned that. Sorry about retconning that. We see how long we can last before we hit a second screen, because our lives are so inundated with all this technology. We're like, hey, can we possibly watch a movie without, looking at a phone or a laptop? And then we extended it further. No smart ass comments. No smarmy comments either. No friends in the room. No alcohol. Because if Jonathan can't drink, we can't drink either during the show. Wherever we're watching, we can drink during this show though. I've got this giant glass of water here. Very excited.
Well, you guys can.
And anyway. How long did you guys go before watching a second screen for High School Musical?
I'll go first. I made it 22 minutes in. Eric?
I made it 40 minutes in, actually.
Okay.
Okay. 1951.
So not bad. So and to be honest, I didn't despise the movie, so it wasn't even a big deal. I just needed to get up from the couch. I was eating in front of the television, and I needed to clear away some stuff, so I had to pause it. So that's why I only got 22 minutes in. I didn't love the movie, didn't hate the movie, but I've got a lot of questions for Eric about this movie. Because it's set in Albuquerque.
You are welcome to ask them. Because
Eric,
mainly my first question was, what freaking school is that in Albuquerque?
So, Eric, in Albuquerque, in January, is it shorts and T-shirt weather?
Usually not in January, no. However, like right about now, it's still, you can wear shorts and a T-shirt right now.
So, Eric, in Albuquerque, in January...
No.
Are all the plants green?
There's actually very few green plants anyway. So, no.
Now, Eric, in Albuquerque, in January, do all the high school students dance and sing like they're on meth?
Well, is it January, though? Because I thought they just started a new school year. That doesn't happen in January.
The movie opens with a New Year's Eve party and then says 2 weeks later, Eric.
Oh,
when do you think the new year begins?
Yeah, but I didn't think, I thought that was at some kind of vacation thing, but apparently not. I thought it was like a...
All right, it has a New Year's Eve party. The two main characters sing a song together.
Yeah,
there's a countdown to the new year. They're about to awkwardly kiss when they break apart. How did you not pick up on this?
Because I'm pretty sure that they were on like a vacation or something, because he asks her where she's from. That's not a thing you do when you're just like at a dance in the city you live in.
Well, they're not in the city they live in. They're at some ski resort someplace. That's clearly not Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Right. So I'm very confused about your line of questioning right now.
Okay, so see, in high school, you have holidays that start before Christmas and go all the way through the new year. thus giving people the opportunity to take a longer vacation, particularly if your dad is, I don't know, the high school basketball coach. And
Well,
so,
I don't know.
therefore,
Anyway, the details of that entire interaction were relatively lost on me. I thought it was some sort of vacation, but yeah, no. The problem is I can't speak much to how Albuquerque high schools look because I didn't go to high school here, so I have little to no clue. There may be just as much singing and dancing. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school.
so one of the things I thought was, okay, first of all, we'll go ahead and give the overall plot. This is one of the most predictable musicals I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's very trite, but it's also it commits a sin, I think, in that it's clearly made for the young audience, but it doesn't it almost talks down to its young audience as opposed to making a fun musical that that doesn't patronize the people who are who it's meant for. At any rate, the story is about a kid named Troy who is a basketball star, played by Zac Efron, and a young lady named Gabriella, played by Vanessa Hudgens. Is that right? Is that her name?
I think so.
Vanessa Hudgens.
Okay. And they meet while on Christmas vacation, as I guess, holiday vacation, at a ski resort when they are chosen to sing with each other, having never met before, and they sing an amazing duet according to the standards of the movie. I was kind of not particularly moved by that song, but anyway, they sing a duet as if they had rehearsed it numerous times and done several takes and recorded it with a full.
It's apparently karaoke, so it's a karaoke duet that they nail perfectly.
Yeah, it's a karaoke duet, and at first it's a song that is not like a famous song.
It's definitely an original song.
Yeah, and yet they know how the tune goes. So that's magical musical stuff right there. This is part of the thing that really confuses me. This is how it introduces the musical. So when I see that, at first I think, is this going to be a musical where all the songs happen within the context of the movie, like they're actually singing a song? Because musicals tend to come in two different types. You have the type where the characters sing the songs and they really are singing the songs within the context of their world. So like Once is a great example of this. You have musicians in that movie. Now, the main character is a musician and he's actually singing his songs in the movie. Whereas the other type is you have characters who are singing songs, and the purpose of that is to either further the plot, reveal more about the character, whatever, make commentary on what has just happened. And the feeling you get is that in this world, people aren't really singing and dancing. That's just the presentation of the story, right? Like you wouldn't say that in the French Revolution, not even the French Revolution, it's post-French Revolution, but the time of Les Miserables, students weren't really doing this choreographed song and dance.
Records are sketchy from that time at best. Clearly, that might have happened.
Fine. All right. So in South Pacific during World War II.
Well, that was based on a true story, I heard.
Yeah. Yep. Bali High, that was a big thing. At any rate, so when the movie started, I thought, oh, this is going to be a musical where all the songs happen because someone picks up a guitar and starts playing it and then starts singing a song to another character, and it's actually happening in that world. I was confused because the next bit, of course, wonderful coincidence, very much in the style of Grease. The young lady and the young man end up going to school together. The young lady's mother moves to Albuquerque. She gets enrolled in the same school that the young man Troy is in. And so Troy and Gabriella are now going to the same school. Troy is overjoyed. However, he's also the basketball captain, and he's not really into singing, though he really enjoyed singing with her. And then you've got this whole plot about the winter musicale, which the really bizarre drama teacher is overseeing. And she's going to hold auditions for it. And then the rest of the movie, pretty much the rest of the movie, is all about Troy and Gabriella figuring out whether or not they want to audition together, and wondering whether or not they will get the role. That's the whole movie. So it really confused me in the next early scene, the next big song, where Troy is wondering whether or not he wants to audition. He's actually thinking about it. He thinks that he might like to sing, but of course he's afraid to say that because all of his friends are on the basketball team and he thinks he'll be judged for it. And so he thinks, I'm not going to sing, I'm not going to sing. And then there's a big song on the basketball court during practice. And that's where I got confused, because I thought, well, the first scene had it where it was a karaoke thing. Now it's acting like it's the other type of musical, where there's a song about how he should have his head in the game and not really go after his dream of perhaps singing in a musical. And it's done as a musical song with all the other basketball players participating. And I'm thinking, all right, now I don't know what's happening. Yeah. The rest of my commentary mostly comes down to the Ashley Tisdale, who plays the stuck up drama queen, and I use that term in multiple meanings. And her brother are like a G-rated Lannisters from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Because she and her brother always audition together for everything, and you get the feeling they've played romantic leads against each other. Her brother always has a hat that's carefully matched to his outfit to a point that's ridiculous as the movie goes on. I kind of liked Ashley Tisdale's character, although it was weird because she was so cartoonish compared to most of the other characters in the movie. No one's realistic, and they shouldn't be. It's a goofy musical, but she's the biggest caricature out of all of them, besides maybe the drama teacher, I think. But other than that, very predictable. The songs didn't irritate me the way Don't Go in the Woods did.
Yeah.
It just didn't really leave an impression.
My first note was, song number 1 is over. Well, that wasn't that horrible.
Is it just me, or are all of the songs of this movie, they're like these pop songs? Pop songs usually about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. These things were like 5 to 7 minutes each.
Yeah.
They seem to go on for a really long time.
The song in the lunchroom just seemed like it was half the movie.
Well, I mean, that was the big reveal, right? The song in the lunchroom was all about how... Actually, that one, I liked where it was going. I think out of all the songs, that was the best one, actually.
It probably was. Like
the conformity song?
Yes, the conformity song.
I kind of liked that song. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was ham-fisted, right? It was It was so not subtle. The whole idea of high school, it pressures kids to conform to specific groups, and if you try to get outside of that group, you are ostracized, or people wonder what's wrong with you, or people will talk about you behind your back. Now, personally, my own experience in high school wasn't like that. My high school wasn't as... Like, I know a lot of people talk about how high school is hellish, and that Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the whole first few seasons of that was to show an allegory of how high school can be hell. My own experience wasn't that bad. So when I see these kind of movies, it doesn't ring true to my experience. All it does to me is it kind of harkens back to the stereotype of high school is this hellish experience where you're expected to conform, and if you don't, you're judged for it. That didn't happen to me. So while I watch it and I can appreciate for what it is, I'm like, does this really happen to people?
I think that this movie also makes a lot more sense if you look at it in the context of where it was actually filmed and not where they said they were. Because when I initially started watching this, I'm like, no, that's no school in Albuquerque. We're kind of poor. Nothing's that fancy. So the actual movie is filmed in Salt Lake City. And I'm like, why didn't they just make it Salt Lake City? This is what I expect of a high school in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, the high school is really, really nice. It's like one of those. If you watch, I grew up on the East Coast, so I'd see these movies, and they have all these California-based movies with these high schools that have like campuses, and they have like covered parking spots. But this school had like a huge, huge campus that put the rest of them to shame, to the point where like the character Troy is trying to sneak away from one part of the building, I guess of the school to the stage. In the auditorium, it takes him like 5 or 6 minutes to do that because this place is just epically large. Yeah. And he's a ninja, by the way. Like, he just disappears like at will, which I think he should use on the basketball court because that's a pretty good fucking skill he's got there. Just
right,
gone.
There's a point where he's right around the corner, and his dad, the basketball coach, who has been putting a lot of pressure on him to win, is walking toward the corner. And then the camera pans over, so you're looking more at the dad. You can't see him anymore because the camera's panned away from him. And when the camera pans back when the coach is there, there's no more Zac Efron. But there was nowhere for him to go. Like, he would have had to have moved at supersonic speeds to have been able to get out of that area. So it's pretty amazing.
Climbed up or burrowed down. I tried very hard to inject logic into this movie. I'm like, okay, the kids are singing in the basketball practice. I'm like, maybe get your head in the game as like a military kind of thing. In the military they sing. It's a little crazy. I mean, it's not that odd. We all kind of accepted they're marching together and they're actually kind of moving in sync. Kind of important. That's when I was having the same issue you were having, Jonathan, of, well, is it in the context of just, okay, we're watching a movie about kids trying out for a musical, so a lot of the singing makes sense there. But I'm like, well, how do you make sense of the rest of it? And the lunchroom scene obviously throws that out the window. It's like, okay, well, this is not only that, but they are aware because the character of Chad is like, everybody's confessing. It's like, oh, so that really did happen. That really just happened.
The stuff that happens within the song, lyrically, happens within the context of the movie. It just doesn't happen the way it does in the song. So in other words, if a character sings to another character and reveals a personal truth, you draw the conclusion that that character has in fact shared that personal truth, but they didn't do it in song. That's just the way it's presented to the audience. Just as a character in Shakespeare, and I hate that I'm comparing Shakespeare to a High School Musical, but a character in Shakespeare might step forward and deliver a monologue, even though other characters are still on the stage, and it's a monologue delivered out to the audience, but really that's just that character's inner thoughts. That character's not truly speaking it out for everyone to hear. Same sort of thing, I think. That's what you have to believe within any musical. It starts to get really odd if you start to buy into a musical as being 100% genuine, if it's done in this style where people just break out into spontaneous choreographed song and dance, unless you draw attention to it and thus parody the musical conventions, and you're doing that to make a point. I once saw a musical that did that. It was called Musical Suck, the Musical. And in the context of that, it was a show that was done at a local theater where a female character who hates musicals gets a gypsy curse put on her that turns her life into a musical. Not for her, she doesn't sing, but everyone around her sings, expresses their inner thoughts in song. They dance. They aren't at all aware that their lives have changed at all. She's the only one who notices. And I thought it was clever. It was also they took a lot of opportunities to kind of poke fun at the conventions of musicals. This doesn't do that, which is also odd because you have the whole storyline of auditioning for a musical within a musical. In many ways, I think the show Glee is a spoof of High School Musical. It's just a spoof that ended up kind of becoming its own spoofable thing.
Okay, so where are we in the plot right now? So we've got the basketball thing. We had the confession scene where they're singing the Status Quo song and they're beating over the head, where one of the athletes' pure desires are mentioned that he likes to bake. Another girl likes to pop and lock. And these are really horrible revelations to their groups. What the skater kid, I can't remember what the skater kid liked to do. I played cello. He played cello.
Yeah.
They're like,
Right.
you can't play cello. And they actually have a guitar solo at one point played on the cello, which, okay, you know, if I'm going to believe the insanity of this place, sure, why not? Guitar solo on a cello with a bow. That's totally cool.
Also, the basketball player whose big confession is he likes to bake, and everyone immediately shuns him. I'm just like,
It's like, what's wrong with baking? Since
Yeah,
when is
no,
baking
it's
like? It's like
it
wasn't like he
seemed
was.
like the it
Go
seemed like the writers were trying to hint at, you know, anything that would be outside of a very stereotypical interpretation of specific archetypes would be considered an aberration and therefore something meant to be ridiculed, which was, you know, it's a little odd. You could tell like they were probably thinking of things that had more of an impact, something that would strike closer to a sensitive topic. And then they said, okay, how many steps away can we get from that so that we have the same general concept
Yeah.
without actually saying something that could be considered, you know, controversial. Like we obviously don't.
Was
Go ahead.
this a G movie, by the way? Was it G?
Oh yeah, this was a movie for Disney Channel. So yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No. My that song, like you know, we get through like the first two people, and I'm like, oh, we're going with cooking and dancing. My first note was, I'm gonna make a bet none of them come out.
We did not get that.
If anyone was going to come out, it would have been the brother of the drama queen.
Well, the other thing is, at the end of the movie, not to jump around in this film, because I know we might get lost in jumping around in this film. At the end of the movie,
Here's spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! They get cast.
Everybody at the end of the giant, because obviously everything turns out wonderful for everybody. All of the male and female characters pair up into, like, one is asking another one for a date, or one just like, you know, takes down the hair of this shy girl.
Yeah.
All of that like cliched stuff in like the 7 or 8 minute like finale. They're all pairing up because there's no way on earth any one of these kids could just be like by themselves. They're totally paired off by the end of the movie.
And there had no backstory to that at all. Like not like for like
if
two
they
of
had
the
been
characters,
just
the
a
main
little
ones,
more,
fine.
if they had been a little more self-aware with that, it would have been hilarious. Right? Like if it had been kind of a self-aware acknowledgement of we are going to indulge in every stereotype in the last 7 minutes for all these characters who we didn't even bother to name.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Basketball players had names on their jerseys, so we didn't have to worry about that.
No,
there was
but like all the nerds and all the cheerleaders.
Oh, that's right. It's just kind of like they just randomly find each other in the musical at the very end of that scene. They hug, and that means that they're a couple. And you're like, what? They're just getting paired off, like just like arranged. It's quite fascinating. Especially now, I'm still jumping around this movie where Zac Efron, this guy is the basketball star, right? He's in that final game and everything, and he wins on camera. He wins. Meanwhile, the girl Gabriella is in part of this decathlon, academic decathlon, which I don't think was really mentioned much in the movie. And now she's like, I really wanted to do this whole time. I didn't get that feeling. And then she wins off screen and mentions it. Oh, I won too. That was
she was in. They show some of the actual decathlon because she's competing. Yeah. She's competing before the audition. So here's how this unfolds. You've got the Lannisters who want to be cast as the leads because they've been cast as the leads for every single musical 17 times in a row, and they're not about to stop now. The Iron Throne is theirs. Then you've got the up and coming Troy and Gabriella. And Troy's already incredibly popular because he's the head of the basketball team. And in this school, for reasons I don't understand, basketball's more important than football. Whatever. Anyway, so Troy has got he's already got a lot of popularity. The new girl is kind of shaking things up because she's got a reputation as being a super smart math whiz, and all the nerds want her to be on their scholarly decathlon team. Once they decide that they're going to audition together, they actually sing the music that the composer, who's another student at the school, she's the nerdy one that gets her hair pulled down at the end and becomes the confident young lady for no apparent reason. She's written the music, and they sing the song the way she wrote it, whereas the Lannisters sang a super poppy version that they had done that was ridiculous and over the top on purpose. It needed to be ridiculous and over the top. That was important as far as their character is concerned. And so then after the Gabriella and Troy sing it sincerely, the drama teacher who had previously said that they were too late reveals that she was listening the whole time and says, "You guys get a call back." And then when the callbacks are coming around, they're supposed to happen the day before two big events that are happening on the next day. The basketball tournament or the basketball final championship and the decathlon. So both of those events are happening on the same day, and the callbacks are the night before. And so then the Lannisters decide that they're going to orchestrate a coup by convincing the drama teacher, for reasons that are never explored in a proper way, to change the date of the callbacks to that Friday, the day when everything else is happening, thus preventing Troy and Gabriella from auditioning for the show. Now, the implication, as far as I can tell, is that the Lannisters are telling the drama teacher, hey, if you want to make sure that Troy and Gabriella are really the people you want to cast, test their loyalty to your project by making them choose between it and the thing like Troy, the thing that Troy has been known for his entire school year. And then, of course, the decathlon thing was treated as an afterthought, very much like you were saying, Ayaz. It had been mentioned several times, but it was only toward the end of the movie at all that Gabriella showed interest in joining it because she didn't want to draw attention to herself. So they orchestrate for all these things to happen on the same day, thus putting Troy and Gabriella at risk to not audition, and then the Lannisters would get their role for the 18th time running. And of course, everyone orchestrates some events by things that are probably illegal so that they can rush out of their prior commitments, audition, and then rush back and finish what they had started. So then, the whole part of them like sabotaging both the basketball game and the decathlon are glossed over very quickly.
They show the quintessential like 10-second scene of a girl at a computer, and then we assume that she's doing something. And then we follow a wire, and she seems to fry a Wi-Fi router, which also knocks out all the lights in the gym. Now, I don't know what was plugged into that router, but usually that's not how it works.
Well, the other thing about the router, if you notice, the router had apparently somebody had like super glued pieces of like old cable ties on the top of it to show you that it was some kind of piece of technology. Right.
And I think that there were two like free wires sticking out of it as opposed to the other Ethernet cables that were just plugged in.
Clearly, the gymnasium scoreboard and light system were all Wi-Fi connected.
Right.
These were smart devices. You're right. They were all not wired. I guess they were wired. Well, whatever. I thought when they showed you this, like this 10-second pan of course, it's the nerd girl pushing a button. And it says Wi-Fi connection established. And you're seeing this thing go by, this little progress meter. And then, like, I'm just thinking of the director, like, okay, look, we got to show some kind of technology happening. Okay, we got to do something. And it's like, it's just a shot. It's just this one steady shot of like inside of like a utility closet going through the wires. And they actually give you an audio cue to tell you that we should be listening for, like, as if you would hear the data transmission. You can hear the data transmission. It's like chirp, 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 chirp things. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of hilarious. Because there's still no really good way of showing this. So you have to have this ridiculous thing that we've seen in like every other serious movie where like everything chirps. But to follow the noise, go down and into this router, it's just like, okay, sure, okay, why not?
That whole part was just really silly. Like the the plot of complicating things and making it seem like Troy and Gabriella are going to have to choose, it's not a very satisfying one if they don't choose. It's like the Kobayashi Maru.
There was this whole like 20 minutes in the middle where it's more or less just a montage of them being sad and not hanging out or something because something happened. And the thing is, I actually missed what that was, what the thing
I can tell
was. You. And yeah, what was that?
Yeah. So here's what happens. Here's what happens. So Troy is well, first of all, the basketball team and the nerds end up having a conspiracy together in order to break up Troy and Gabriella. The reason they want to do it is because the basketball team wants Troy to be focusing on just basketball and not the musical stuff. And the nerds want Gabriella to agree to be part of the the decathlon team. And she so far has said no because she doesn't want to do that, but she does seem to want to do the musical, and they think maybe if they can get her to stop going after the musical, she'll do the decathlon. So they plan. This is completely independent of the drama queen, by the way. The whole plot of the drama queen at this point, the Lannisters, is they think that the basketball team and nerds are working together to make sure Gabriella and Troy get an audition, which is weird because then the Lannisters just disappear from the plot for a good 20 minutes. So what happens is the basketball team confronts Troy and tells him that he needs to cut this crap out and concentrate on the game, and that he's letting the team down by not doing that. And then they essentially goad him in a way that is ridiculous. Like they had planned this out as if this were a foregone conclusion. They goad him to the point where he starts saying, this girl doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to be concentrating 100% on the game. And meanwhile, they're in view setting up a laptop with a webcam on it and starting it, which is then streaming the video directly to Gabriella, who's in the science lab. And the nerds have set this up to show her that Troy is not a good guy. He's just a lunkhead, in their words.
God.
So essentially, the two groups conspire to ruin the relationship, and so that's what caused the whole fracture between the two.
All right.
And then Troy wants to explain that he didn't really mean what he had said. He shouldn't have said the whole thing in the first place, but he had been goaded into it. And to me, I was just like, how predictable are you that they that they have this whole thing set up and they're like, I know what we can do. All I have to do is say these three things and Troy will end up denouncing Gabriella, even if he doesn't mean it. And it'll ruin everything, and then we'll be awesome. But anyway, that is probably the weakest part of the whole movie, which is saying something. There's some weak elements. I will say, out of all of the people in this movie, Ashley Tisdale, who I like I said, I kind of liked her character, even though she was the most cartoonish. Like, all of her movements were cartoonish. She was playing the super stuck up character, who, by the way, has a 180-degree character turn at the end of the movie that makes no sense.
Yeah.
In all of 10 seconds, you're right. She just turns.
Yeah. Yeah. She's horrified that she is not picked for the character. And then she's like all sweetness. She says at one point, I guess we're playing the understudies to you guys. So if you're ever not able to perform, then we will. So break a leg. In theater, that means good luck. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Well, see, the thing is, she didn't read it like the way Jonathan's doing it right now. She read it as sincere and genuine, as if it means good luck. And they both start laughing, and they're okay now. I mean, it wasn't like they had a ton of conflict, other than the one incident in the lunchroom where where Gabriella accidentally puts the the cheese fries, and they fall into what's her name's shirt, and the huge leap that
her name, by the way, is Sharpay. Yes,
Sharpay,
like the dog, except spelled differently.
Sharpay then immediately goes to the drama teacher and explains that Gabriella is trying to ruin the musical, basically destroy the whole high school based on this one action, because she purposely, apparently, dropped chili fries on the other girl. Like the leap of logic that the drama teacher goes with, by the way, it's just like,
right.
Wow, okay, that's what you like. You really think that in a lunchroom, this was on purpose, and the intent was to destroy the musical or musicale, excuse me.
Which, by the way, that never goes anywhere either. Like, she claims that Gabriella and Troy are actively trying to destroy the musicale, but nothing that while they tell the drama teacher that and she goes off in a huff, she doesn't stop them from having their callback or anything. She doesn't seem she does go and confront the basketball coach, saying that she knows that he's trying to ruin it, and he says, "No, I'm not," and that's the end of that. And you're like, well, I guess that machination didn't go through. I don't see what, the drama teacher is probably the most psychopathic character in this movie, because she is ridiculously snobbish, stuck up, full of herself. She's got a self-importance issue, especially when it comes to drama, and the fact that she starts giving people detention in homeroom. Because at the very beginning of the movie, she starts giving people detention who have their cell phones out, and they're all in homeroom. Because at first I was wondering, why the heck is this class only 10 minutes long? They walked into the classroom, and then the teacher said one thing, gave everybody detention, and then the bell rang for class to be let out. And then later on, she mentioned that it was a homeroom class, and I thought, well, why is she teaching it all in homeroom? Isn't that just to kind of ascertain who is in school and who isn't? So
there's also, she also doles out. Go ahead, Eric.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, she also doles out detention. She doles out detention for those who have cell phones for like after school detention, which sounds normal to me. But then she doles out detention in 15-minute intervals, which I've never heard. She's like, detention, 15 minutes. It's like, that's not even detention. Right. That's like you packing your bag. So like, what is the point of that? And in Darbus, that's her last name, Darbus, she wants them to like go to the stage to help like build stuff. But what the hell could they possibly do in 15 minutes?
Right.
And how do you give somebody 15 minutes of detention? What is that? That's like I guess a stepped up timeout, but 15 minutes. 15 minutes. You said something. 15 minutes.
I just want to know if it's true or not that the Palm Trio was actually popular with high school kids. Because that was what all of them had. It was a trio. Like at one point I looked it up because I'm like, pretty sure that's a trio.
Somebody had a sidekick. Sharpay had a pink encrusted sidekick.
The movie came out in 2006, so it was before the iPhone.
Oh yeah.
Let's be fair.
Definitely.
Very chunky. The fun thing of like they take pictures. The selfies are literally of taking the phone and turning it around, and it's just kind of like, how do you know if the shot's any good?
That was another thing that I didn't know if that was a thing, was when they trade numbers in the beginning, they each hand each other their phones and take a selfie, and I was like, wait, is that a thing? Was that a thing? Like, was that ever a thing?
I can tell you that people that all three of us know have done that with me.
Wow. All right.
I won't out them beyond that. But yes. No, the other thing I'll say is that Ashley Tisdale plays a character in a cartoon that I very much enjoy. It's also a Disney show, Phineas and Ferb. She does the voice acting for the sister Candace. And it's actually a really... I don't know if you guys ever watch cartoons, but it's actually a pretty cute and entertaining cartoon.
I think I've seen
much smarter than High School Musical.
And the other thing is, like, I think I was desensitized to this movie because I've watched so many children's things because of my son. So like I've watched a lot of like we joked about like Super Buddies and like Air Bud and that stuff. Like I've watched so many just terrible movies that this thing wasn't so bad. And like the messages weren't like.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this one predicted that I was going to give it like 1.4 stars. I actually didn't dislike this movie. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say I liked it as much as I wasn't, I didn't feel like it was a bad film. I just felt that it was incredibly predictable. If I were a kid who hadn't seen a billion musicals, or really just any kind of story that carries the same general arc, I probably would have really enjoyed it. So I don't think there was nothing in this that particularly upset me other than the fact that it just very much follows a formula that has been established forever. But I mean, if it does it okay, which I guess this was okay, I didn't think it did a great job, but it was certainly not insultingly bad like most of the stuff we watch. I'm actually a little disappointed in my pick because I was hoping that would be something we'd really grouse about.
I have my notes.
I want to hear your notes.
All right, so I was expecting to fully hate this movie. I don't like musicals. I find them to be ridiculous. I don't like the believability. As Jonathan has explained, this stuff isn't actually happening. True, I'll get that. Anyway, but I'm not a musical fan. So when he picked this, I'm pretty sure I have a phrase in here that I probably said out loud. So children at unsupervised party. 2 are singing because they were chosen by Spotlight. These kids can apparently sing very well and look terrified at the same time. So they're all kind of like, I don't know the words, but they're like projecting. They're doing really well. Karaoke in a musical makes sense so far. Male lead visibly flubs line. There's a line, there's a terrible lip mistake there. Then the next line says, Strickland, you fucker. Then they go from staring at the words to just not looking at the TV anymore when they're singing. 5 minutes, 25 seconds. I pause to check the time. Guy equals Troy Bolton.
Wait, you said 19 minutes.
Well, I checked the time. I kept watching, though.
Yeah, but you paused it.
If you pause it for 1 second, that counts?
I don't pause. If I'm checking time, I make sure I don't pause it. I just hit the little thing. Well, I'm using the Xbox. So if I just hit the little controller, it'll tell me the time.
All right, so if you want to say 5:25, we'll do 5:25. I pause it for a second to check the time. So there you go, okay? So if you want to count that 1 second interval. All right, so I've decided that all the lines in this movie belong to a porno. Quote, my shower head is very impressed. This is Zac Efron explaining how he sings in the shower. And then Gabriella says, I took one look at all those people, and then I was staring at the ceiling. And that's when it hit me that I'm like, dear God.
Admit, I never considered that was going to be. I never considered that as anything other than what it was, how it was presented in the movie, and now you've ruined it for me.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get some enjoyment out of this film. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna play my own games here if I'm gonna watch this. Okay, so let's see. Those are the 2 porno lines. Note: Troy has bad peripheral vision because he doesn't notice Gabriella leave. They're hanging out for a second, and he's just still talking, and she's left. He's actually told her to go, and he just doesn't notice. So I think he might have glaucoma. Okay, so 1 week later. Do high school kids wear blazers now? Because like one of the first kids we see is wearing a blazer. Fart sound is made by a student. The caption reads, makes disparaging sound, which I really liked. 15-minute detention, what the fuck? Albuquerque/East High School. Gabriella throws herself at Troy. Pink girl, Sharpay, equals bitch. Good at it. And he's a wildcat. She's a dog and he's a cat. Get it? This is not poorly acted. Musical breaks out in the basketball practice, not odd at all because of military songs. 1951 stopped watching. West High is the rival. Coach Dad is dense but well-meaning. Troy equals ninja, should use skills in the game. Here's a quote from Darvis that I really liked that actually made me laugh out loud. As they're doing a bunch of auditions, students are coming out to sing, she says, as for your singing, that is a wonderful tie you are wearing. Which I really thought was very clever. And then I have a note here.
There were a couple of lines in this movie that I actually didn't like. Beyond, I would go so far as to say it wasn't that I just didn't hate it. I actually kind of enjoyed a couple of them.
I did laugh out loud a couple of times, so I'm not. I mean, I'm owning up to this. We've definitely watched worse. Songs are catchier than "Don't Go in the Woods." Musical and musical is a good way to put music in a movie without my usual objections to musicals. East High. They mentioned East High a lot, so I wrote East High, drink. So if you played a drinking game to this movie, every time they say East High, you're going to get drunk. Slow singing.
Other phrases that will get you wasted if you're watching High School Musical. Wildcats.
Yep.
And get your head in the game.
Well, that one song will get you there.
Well, but they say it every single time too.
Yeah, it's like it comes back 5 or 6 times.
It's part of their school chant.
Get your head in the game. East Side Drink, a slow singing, same song back to back, really schmaltzy. Liz realizes a musical number is coming way before I did. The Secret song. This is the conformity song. It turns out. And I have this line. I wonder how many kids sang along to the Status Quo song without knowing the actual message, because it's kind of catchy. The confession song equals is canon at the school. What happened there. Here's another porno line. Have you ever felt like a whole other person is inside of you waiting to come out?
You're a terrible person.
She says this, and then I'm just like, I'm writing this down. So I did pause the movie to write that down. These songs are exceptionally long, 5 minutes each. Everyone wins at the end. This is where Zac Efron's character wins the basketball game, last second shot. You've got the off-screen win in the decathlon. What else happens? Let's see. Oh, they got cast in the musicale, which actually never happens because we don't actually see the musicale at some point. All must pair. This is where all the kids are getting together. So with a big dance number at the end, where did the West High team go? Because they disappear. Like there's a whole other basketball team that comes to play at East, and they lose and they just disappear while the 7 or 8 minute dance number is going on. My last note here is, where did the mom go during the entire movie? Because Troy's mom shows up in the first scene, and she's like, hey, we're going to stop playing basketball. Let's go do something else. And then she's gone for the entire rest of the movie. She does not show up. And I was like, maybe I imagined her. But then I saw a credit, says something Bolton, and I'm like, no, she was there. She was the mom. I don't recall her dying. Here's what I figured. I had to inject logic into this. They were on some kind of ski vacation, like Eric thought, and she dies skiing. But we never talk about that. So that's why she's not in the movie. She dies skiing. After that party, she gets drunk, because she goes to the adult party. The kids are at the kids' party, the karaoke. Dead. And that's what I thought.
Interesting.
Fair enough.
So I decided to look up one of the actresses in this movie, the one I did not recognize, because I know of Vanessa Hudgens. I knew of Ashley Tisdale. Didn't know about Olesia Rulin, who is the actress who plays Kelsey, the piano player, the composer of the musicale. She was born in Russia in 1986, which actually makes her a little older than what I thought she was, and is 4'11". So she really was as short as she appeared to be in the movie. But that was the first time I thought, like when I saw her, I thought she looks familiar. What else have I seen her in? I'm looking at her list of movies and shows she's been in, and I guess I gotta say, not a damn thing. I haven't seen anything else she's done. I thought she looked familiar, but there's nothing in here. I do think it's also funny. It says she is an actress known for High School Musical, 2006, High School Musical 3, Senior Year, 2008, and High School Musical 2, 2007. So it does High School Musical 3, and High School Musical 2.
So she's not very prominent, I guess, in 2.
I guess
by
not.
the way, the PS3 was like, do you want to just start the next one now? I'm like, no. I do not want to watch High School Musical 2 right now. But I did end up watching a show called Scary Tales. We can get to that later.
No. Well, let's get to it now, because I think we're done with High School Musical. Well, actually, Eric, it's your turn to pick, because Ayaz had to skip. This is his second skip, which means that you get to pick one, then I get to pick one, and then Ayaz finally gets to pick another one. Although I don't really know if we should let you pick one, Eric, because you picked Daddy Can't Dance.
Daddy Can't Dance was so offensive and made me so angry. It made for a good show, I think.
It did make for a good show. It did make for a good show. It still was not as offensive in my mind as Rock and Roll Frankenstein, but we covered that last episode.
Yeah, watch that episode. The Daddy Can't Dance is offensive for so many other reasons. Oh, the main reason being the main character is so fucking creepy, but charismatic in this world. That's what happens when you direct and write and star in a movie. You can always be charismatic.
You can be an evil son of a bitch and be viewed as a lovable scamp.
You got smoke coming out of your ears. That didn't happen in High School Musical. High School Musical was more believable than Daddy Can't Dance.
It certainly didn't have any. It didn't have any cartoon physics in it. It had musical logic, but not cartoon physics.
it had some physics issues, I think, in High School Musical, considering none of the plant life would live there, and the fact that it was Utah. Just put it in Utah. Anyway, did that give Eric enough time to find a movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh, shit.
It's gonna be bad.
I don't like the way you said that.
All right, what's the title, Eric?
It is called Strange Frame.
Okay, I'm going to find
Is this
that
a
myself.
bowling movie?
No.
That's not bad. Okay. It's a Strickland's joke. It's a
cartoon.
strange, what is it? Frame?
Two
Adult
female musicians
animation.
fall in love and form a band as they fight for freedom in a world of space pirates, indentured slaves, and genetic
wait.
mutations.
You know
Tara
what?
Strong.
This is animated. So
No shit, it's animated. No, it's a live-action movie in which two female musicians fall in love, form a band, and fight for freedom in a world of space pirates, indentured
you ever
slaves,
watched
and
Masters
genetic
of the Universe?
mutations.
Masters
Hold
of the
on.
Universe has got some of this shit.
Tim Curry is in this.
So is Tara Strong.
Cree Summer. Cree Summer's in everything. And Juliet Landau, who I think was in Buffy.
Yes, she was Drusilla. Spike.
Mm-hmm.
That's
All
right,
I'm going with this. I'm going with it.
Oh, Ron Glass is in it. He was in Firefly.
So we got a good cast for voices, but thankfully it's 2 minutes less than High School Musical, which was 97 minutes. This clocks in at 95.
Here are some of the genres it falls into: adult animation, sci-fi and fantasy, sci-fi thrillers, gay and lesbian movies, steamy thrillers, adventures, sci-fi adventure, action and adventure, steamy romantic movies, romantic gay and lesbian movies, thrillers, and romantic movies. This movie is romantic, steamy, exciting, imaginative. And it has not yet been rated.
Hey,
And
reading
his
through
movie.
the reviews, people seem to like the music at least.
Oh, you guys in music, man.
I like this review here. The daring story of a treasure troll and California raisin raptured in a lesbian relationship in a futuristic diorama of 1994. Take Dramamine before you watch this. Everything oozes and smushes for no reason. This has been added. The best guess for me, by the way, is 1 star.
I have 1.3 apparently.
I'm gonna go see my list. I didn't even look at it. I just added it in horror. It says for me 1.5 stars, and I rate everything a 5. The shittier the movie, actually, I guess High School Musical should get like a 3 in mine.
Aren't they
because I
mostly
actually kinda
horrors and stuff though? So it might be picking genres for you at this point.
Possibly, but yeah, that's gonna be magnificent or something. I hope. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to horror. And by the way, this was our Halloween episode, and we picked High School Musical. Who the fuck planned that out?
I did.
That was Jonathan.
That was. But we never actually. We
not-
don't do shows week to week, so this is. I don't. This could
Was
have
it
been.
not scary enough for you, IS?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it did have a very racially diverse cast.
Yep.
And they were all very athletic. So, yeah, it's terrifying. Actually, I was like, the lessons in here aren't bad. Like this is like as watching as a father, I'm like, well, that's not a bad idea. Well, then this dad's not a very good dad. He's not like he watches his son like totally miss a bunch of shots in his backyard. They live like in a palace, by the way, beautiful home. Yeah. And like he just watches his son kind of just like frustratedly throw the ball, miss entirely, and then lays out on the lawn. And so the dad watches him and then closes the door and goes back in the house. I'm like, dude, that's your fucking kid. Go out there and do something. And like here I am like totally being a dad and watching this shit movie. So it got a different angle.
This follows your theory though, because the dad is depressed. The mom died on the ski vacation.
That does that's why Troy can't go out
Troy,
there.
Well, then I have
that's
to.
why,
if that's actually the case, then I have to go back and change what I said before, where I had originally said the drama teacher was the biggest psychopath in the movie. If Troy's mother died on the ski trip and Troy is mostly concerned with trying to hook up with the girl he met on said same ski trip, he's the biggest psychopath.
No, wait a minute. This is psychological. Now, this guy's trying to replace the woman in his life who just died. And and his teammates are just trying to explain to him because he's gonna freaking crack. Hey, look, your mom's dead. You should put your head in the game. The game is what you know. Don't try something new right now because you're grieving. That's what's happening here. Yes, that is not what is happening.
This doesn't work at all if the mother shows up in either High School Musical 2 or 3.
Hey, look,
do we
she
know
can be
if
resurrected.
they're the same characters? Maybe. They have to be.
They are the same characters because they're on the covers.
Right.
I don't. You know, I'm going to look that up. I'm going to find out if the actress shows up ever again in this High School Musical. God, I didn't even look up stuff. I did watch on a suggestion on Netflix. I watched Scary Tales. You guys ever watch that?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's made by 3Net or 3D Net. So it's like, do you want to watch this in 3D? I'm like, no, because I don't have 3D glasses. So there's a lot of in this actual show, it's got two tales, pretty much the origins of fairy tales and how disturbing they were. Obviously, if you think of like Red Riding Hood, it's kind of fucked up. But if you think of something like Snow White, it's less fucked up. But they give you the grim version of it or the earliest versions of these tales as you can find. And like the Red Riding Hood one is pretty good with like how horrible it is and like, oh, look, Red Riding Hood's going to eat the flesh of her grandmother because the wolf cooked it up for her, which I'd never heard about, by the way. So you got these experts talking about how these are morality plays and explaining stuff to people. So it's all right, but because it's a 3D kind of thing, you from time to time you'll see like these CG animals and they'll just be flung at you, or like blood will be splattered at you. So like it's
do characters ever
obvious.
Do characters ever reach toward the camera for no discernible reason?
There was a spider where like Red Riding Hood sees it in the woods and she just kind of blows on it and then she kind of just reaches at it. It's like, okay, obviously this doesn't hold up very well, and I'm very curious how it looks if I actually put on. I have to get a pair of 3D glasses first to see it. So I'm going to find out this actress. Did she make it back? I don't know. Somebody say something.
Well, I'll say this. I mentioned last week, I think, that I watched Antisocial and explained the plot of it and how stupid it was. Because that was one that you were going to pick, Ayaz, before you changed your mind and then made us watch something really awful. Oh, Don't Go in the Woods. That was the one you made us watch instead.
We tried to watch Antisocial as well. Like, you know, I remember it being on my Netflix list and going, oh, yeah, we were going to watch that for the show. And then I think we started it and dropped off in like 15 minutes.
All right. So my theory does not hold up because in High School Musical 2, Mrs. Bolton is back and she's also in 3. So if she does die or perhaps very, very injured, I'm going to say she was injured.
Maybe she just leaves for
maybe
a year.
Maybe she's a zombie in parts 2 and 3 or a ghost.
Yeah. She could just be there in flashbacks. There's nothing saying. Yeah.
Maybe she appears like Return of the Jedi-ish where you can sort of see through her. Troy, use the Force.
I'm going to ask a Disney expert right now. I'm going to text somebody and find out.
I also tried to watch the movie You're Next, which has actually really good reviews on Netflix. And it said that the best guess for me was 4.8 stars.
Wow. Oh,
and unfortunately, it grossly overestimated my enjoyment of that movie.
That was, yeah. I remember that one. I didn't think it was horrible. It was all right.
The problem I had was that it depended too heavily on the whole dysfunctional family trope. Like it's the combination of a stalking slasher murder kind of movie with the dysfunctional family gathering where everyone is everyone kind of hates everybody else, but they're all family, so they're all together anyway. And I had a real issue with it, and so I didn't finish it. It also kind of was tough on me because I guess saying I know him is the wrong way of putting it. I'm familiar with the guy who's the lead actor in You're Next, AJ Bowen, who is also in The Signal, which was a movie that the director for my series, Forward Thinking, he directed part of The Signal, and I was an extra in it. But I know most of the people involved in it, but I don't know AJ really. I know his work, but I've never worked with him personally, and I don't think I've ever actually met him.
Oh
But
yeah, I saw. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, but anyway, he plays the main, like the male lead in that movie, and so I really wanted to watch it because I'm like, I appreciate his work, and he was doing a good job. I just wasn't connecting with the material. So in that case, it wasn't so much the performers, it was just the material itself wasn't for me. But a lot of people love it. So if you guys, out there really like, like dark humor and slasher movies, it might be one that appeals to you. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah, we went and saw Gone Girl, uh, which was pretty good. I mean, it's not a horror movie, but well, kind of, I
Well, I don't
guess.
know. Ben Affleck gets naked. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, but it's a thriller. I mean, my only complaint was that it was 2 hour, almost 2.5 hours long, and yeah, it was a bit too long. I really do want to go see John Wick though.
Yeah. I've heard interesting. Well, I just remember hearing on a podcast that about people talking about it, but I know nothing about that movie. So, what about
Yeah,
did you guys follow the Marvel announcements at all today?
Yeah, I saw a couple of. I think the biggest thing I took from it is that Avengers 3 is in two parts. And originally I'm like, why don't I just call it 3 and 4? But I get the idea because the big thing about these Disney Marvel movies I've noticed is that they don't do other than Iron Man, they don't do this like Iron Man 2. They don't go like Avengers 2. They just give you a subtitle and you actually
Right.
get a movie. So you could have a part 1 and 2 of Avengers Infinity Gauntlet or Infinity War, whatever it's going to be called.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest thing I saw.
What's interesting to me is that if like I don't know exactly how year by year this breaks down. But the third Captain America movie is going to be Civil War, right?
Hmm.
Is that coming out before or after the next Avengers movie?
I think it was before.
So Civil War happens before the Infinity War.
Yes. Well, in this universe, I guess so.
It's weird to me only because they've been setting up the Infinity War stuff since the first Thor movie.
Right, but you still got to collect all the gems, so that's going to take time.
Well, it just
What?
seems weird because the Civil War stuff has really they've only really started laying the groundwork with that since Winter Soldier. Captain America Winter Soldier kind of started laying the groundwork for the Civil War stuff by having Captain America being less than thrilled with the way the United States is handling their espionage and politics. He thinks it's not black and white the way he expects it. And so I felt like that was kind of laying the groundwork for the Civil War storyline, but that comes so much later than the Infinity stuff compared to, the grand timeline of the Marvel movies. It just seems weird. Also, it makes me wonder how they're going to resolve the Civil War storyline before moving into Infinity War. But I don't know. I was excited about I'm excited to see a Doctor Strange movie. I'm never been a huge fan of the comic book character, but I'm wondering if the cinematic version can make me come round and really enjoy it. The Black Panther movie I think is awesome. I like to see that Marvel's really pushing for diversity with their films and not just and that Black Panther is going to be an actual part of that Marvel universe. It's not going to be some bullshit like standalone film that doesn't have any direct connection with anything else they're doing. I'm glad that they're going that way. I'd still like to see an actual Black Widow movie, personally.
That'll be Phase 4 in like 2025.
Yeah, maybe.
When Scarlett Johansson is like 50.
Well, maybe they'll go with a different. They're going to have to eventually, go to different actors,
Recast.
and whether they do it where they acknowledge that there's a new person playing it by, the whole comic book thing where someone else takes up the mantle of that hero and becomes that hero, or if they just don't acknowledge it and they just get a different actor to play that part and say, no, this guy's playing the same character, kind of like James Bond's been played by all these different actors. I don't know. I don't know how I would handle it. I probably would try the James Bond route if I thought I could get away with it, just because there's only so many times you can change the mantle of a hero before it becomes meaningless.
With the Infinity Gauntlet or Infinity War, and Infinity Gauntlet, spoiler, if you haven't read the book like a long time ago, like Thanos like kills everybody. So when they bring them back, they could be different actors. Like that's how easily you could just do this. Like you could not retcon. Actually, you could retcon stuff right there. Or you could just reset the universe, and things aren't exactly the way they were when you started off. So it gives you opportunities to kind of like not refine like old stories, but you could continue this with new actors and new ways because it's not exactly the same. But that's Marvel. I mean, that's the way the Marvel books worked anyway. Like Captain America gets killed at least twice or three times in my readings. I think at least twice that I've read. So I don't know how often Steve gets killed, but it's at least twice. So who knows how they're going to make.
No
that
one
work.
dies permanently. I mean, if they
even Bucky
even
was
those
supposed
who,
to be dead forever, and he didn't even do that.
like, yeah. Well, I mean,
Uncle
like
Ben.
even it's true for both major titles too, like both major publishers rather too, because Jason Todd was killed in a very like he was voted by readers to die, and he came back. But anyway, it's death is never going to be permanent. I'm really wondering how long it'll be before Wolverine comes back. He's currently dead in the canon of Marvel. But anyway, I'm encouraged a bit. I'm a little worried that perhaps they're releasing too many films like in the same year. I don't know how I feel about that. Like I almost would like it parsed out a little more because I'm worried about getting superhero fatigue. But if the movies are done well, I guess maybe it won't matter.
Well, it could be like the books. I mean, you could read all the Marvel books if you wanted to and have a cohesive universe, or you can kind of pick and choose what you're looking at. So I think if these movies can stand alone enough on their own, or they don't reference too heavily into the other the other movies, you don't have to watch every single one. Like, I'm not the biggest Thor fan, and I don't think I would miss too much other than, I mean, since Loki's the big bad guy, you kind of want to see what he does. But you might not have to watch Black Panther to understand Ant-Man. You might not have to watch Ant-Man to understand Black Panther, that kind of thing. We're like, oh, just one giant universe and they kind of exist together. That's cool, but like, I don't think we're gonna have that same. I don't think it's gonna be like I don't think it's possible that you can keep tying them all together where you have to watch all of them to get a full picture.
I don't think you'll ever have to watch all of them, but I think by watching all of them, you get a deeper appreciation of what's going on. Like I don't think the Guardians of the Galaxy movie is a good example. I think that one largely existed on its own terms, and while there were elements of it that could tie back into the Infinity War storyline and will tie into the Infinity War storyline, it's not something that would have been necessary for you to watch and still understand generally what's going on with that plot. So anyway, Eric, you've been quiet. Have you no interest at all in the Marvel films? He's not even there. Look at that. Great cut.
That is
to
awesome.
Eric's
I wish we had done we should look to the future now, I think. What do you
Coach just went, Eric, how about it? You want to? I mean, it's about that time.
Before we do look into the future, there's a quick plug. Quick plug before we look into the future.
All right. I can give a quick
that.
plug too.
We do this show at gfqnetwork.com. So if you want to see old episodes, watch old episodes, listen to old episodes. If you want to watch this live, we stream this live at around 10:30 Eastern time on Tuesday nights. I don't know if that'll change, but we do this show semi-regularly. So if you follow us on Twitter at PWP Show, we do mention when we're live. GFQ Network is nice enough to actually post it because we freaking forget, or at least I do. So gfqlive.tv, when we do the show live, there's a chat room. You can be there. And I should have really loaded the chat room live, but I forgot that. Anyway, that's the end of the plug for me. Anyway, Jonathan, you had a plug?
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's a self-serving plug rather than one for GFQ Network, which clearly is the more important one. But there's something that I did that was kind of fun that publishes tomorrow, and so I'd like folks to go check it out if they get a chance. So last week I shot a special episode of my series Forward Thinking at Oakland Cemetery, which is a historic cemetery here in Atlanta, A lot of famous Atlantans were buried there, like Margaret Mitchell, and shot an episode about monsters of the future, and zombies are in my video, like they're trudging toward me through the whole thing. That goes live tomorrow, which is the October 29th. So if you've never watched an episode, you should go check that one out, just because I think it's a fun one. So it's on YouTube. Just search for FW Thinking, and the episode for Halloween, which I think is called Monsters of the Future, but I haven't read the final title. I just know it's in the queue for publication. So check that out. Also, you should check out Eric, who doesn't like to talk about Marvel movies.
I don't have a plug. I don't do any other public things. So.
Certainly don't talk about the movies that we started to chat about.
We'll plug Eric Sandine. If you see Eric Sandine in the local supermarket, say hi. His name is Eric. Nice. Yeah. What else could you plug? He also answers to Sandine. So
yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's your plug. Or at Sam
I like how
Sandine.
That's another plug. What else does he answer to? Sandine, yeah.
He answers to, hey, you, over there. Yes, you. No, not you, but you. Yes, that's how it goes. Anyway. Let's look into the future. Next week on Podcast Without Pretense.
Not only do I keep breaking out in choreographed song and dance, I also re-enrolled in high school.
Okay, there are lots of ants crawling around on the door jamb. I shouldn't have used Pam to lubricate that.
I honestly found High School Musical more offensive than this film.